Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the MCJ Report, number 47. Great to have you here. Welcome to everyone tuned in from around Australia and also our international guests. I believe we have a guest tonight tuned in all the way from Sweden. So welcome to Australia. Welcome to the broadcast. Sweden is a country I've never been to. I've always been fascinated, though, by that part of the world. I'd love to get there one day, obviously without a COVID vaccine passport. Needless to say, how's everybody doing? And let me know where you're tuned in from. I hope that everybody had a great weekend. There's Teresa, Terry, Daniel, Sally, Sharon, Terry, Paris, Jenny, Seb, Shane, Danielle, Joseph. It's great to have you guys here. Judy B, there you go, Judy B, my friend from Melbourne. I am in Melbourne, I'm back, that's right. It's great to be back in Melbourne. There's Harry. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Harry from regional Victoria, if I'm remembering correctly, Harry. Sasha. Near Byron Bay. Well, we need to get from Byron Bay. There's a lot of Reignite Democracy supporters in Byron Bay, believe it or not. And it's a beautiful part of the country, and I've never been there. So, Hank, it's PJ, I see you on all the broadcasts. Great to have you back. John tuned in from Queensland. We have a few Queenslanders on board the MCJ Report. I love Queensland. I haven't been for quite a while, actually. I want to say maybe 5 years. 5 years ago, I was in Cairns for the first time, and I fell in love with the place. My first time in far north Queensland, and I said to myself, what was I doing all those years traveling to other countries? We have the most beautiful country right here at home. So many of us, of course, had the travel bug. And now that the borders have been closed, many of us have explored Australia a lot more, and it really gets you thinking that why didn't we do this before? So it's really great to have you on board. Anna there from the Gold Coast. I love the Gold Coast as well. Several years ago, I was considering moving there. That's right. I was looking for rentals up in the Gold Coast. I thought that might be a fun place to live, but I decided against it. And in Melbourne, I am, and this is where I'm going to stay. So. This is where the battleground is, really. I think much of the future of Australia will be fought for right here in Melbourne. So, if you want to battle, Melbourne's probably the place for it. So it's so good to see you guys. I can see some of you tuned in on YouTube as well. So welcome to our YouTube guests. We've got a few things to talk about on the show tonight. I'm just going to give a bit of a recap on the weekend. We had the Worldwide Rally for Freedom. I saw the footage from Melbourne. It looked great. It looked like everybody had a great time and there were nice speeches. So congratulations to everybody that showed up, not just in Melbourne, but all the countries around the world that held the Worldwide Rally for Freedom. As you know, myself and Monica, we were invited to speak in Sydney. So we went there and there were about 1,500 people, and I had a fantastic time meeting so many great Sydney people. So by far the highlight of my Sydney trip was getting to meet the good people of Sydney and many Reignite Democracy supporters and also viewers of the MCJ Report. So I'd like to thank the people of Sydney for having me. And now I'm back in Melbourne and just back to it, just rolling my sleeves up and getting to it in any way that we need to get things done. So that's what we're doing. And what else can I tell you? Did you go to the Freedom Rally? If you did, which city did you go to? And put in the comments, how was your experience? What stood out? What did you like? Maybe there was something you did not like, and feel free to put that in as well, because we need to be realistic. And if there's something that needs to be improved, I say we should work to improve it. Is that fair enough? So that's what I have to say about that. Now, I did an over an hour long interview with our American correspondent, Mike Closer. Some of you remember him from the MCJ Report last month. He's going to be coming on our show once a month to give us updates in relation to the state of public affairs over in the United States. What we tend to see is the policy orchestrated in the United States has a way of making it over to Australia and to other countries around the world. We like Mike. Mike's such a good mate of mine. We've been mates for years, and he has great insight and his analytical mind in relation to politics, I would say, is very rare and gives us a perspective that is otherwise unsaid by the mainstream media, especially the mainstream media here in Australia. So we had a great interview. I'm going to air the interview between Mike and myself during this week sometime. We actually spoke about a few interesting topics. One of them was the personal relationship between the governor of Florida and former President Donald Trump. I know that many of you have been following the footsteps of Governor DeSantis in Florida and the legislation that he has been pushing through in relation to upholding personal liberties in the face of this tremendous assault on our liberties that we've, of course, seen since the inception of this situation. I didn't realize that DeSantis and Trump were so close. And Mike actually goes into extensive detail regarding their relationship and their meetings and their discussions. So I think that you'll find it particularly interesting to understand a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes, because Florida and the laws and legislation they're introducing looks fantastic. Okay, Craig Kelly is modeling a new proposed bill based on Florida legislation in relation to the outlawing of COVID vaccine passports. So I think that we need to support and promote people, whether it's governors or lawmakers around the world, who are doing the right thing to stand up for freedom, whether they're here in Australia, whether it's somebody like David Limbrick, Craig Kelly, or Governor DeSantis all the way over in Florida. We need to share their work, and hopefully our politicians will catch on. Also, something interesting from the weekend, I got to meet Craig Kelly, which was great. I thought it was fantastic that Craig came and spoke at the protest. He spoke well, and his voice and his actions gives us a lot of hope. So thank you very much to Craig Kelly. Anyway, glad to see you guys here. It looks like we have about 200 on the broadcast right now. There's Nat there. Nat is also doing a great job. Sharon, Cameron, good to see you again. Cameron is a great artist. He actually gave me some artwork. Cameron, thank you very much. I still have it, of course. All right, so let's get to the news, shall we? All right, so I'd like to make a mention of the officers from Binella Police Station. Now, usually when I speak about Victoria Police, you know what's coming. I've been very critical of Victoria Police, especially over the past 12 months in relation to the COVID restrictions and the manner of which they have been very heavy-handed with us Victorians here. Of course, the lockdown protests, a lot of us arrested with excessive force very violently. But on the other hand, I feel it's also important to speak up when police do something great. And Binella Police actually did something tremendous, really tremendous for Monica and myself last night. So I wanted to share this story with you. We were driving back from Sydney. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and we had a huge problem with the motorhome. Something fell and something was dragging along the highway, and we had to stop. So we're about 2.5 hours north of Melbourne, just out near the exit to Binella, and a big tank fell down. It was dragging behind the motorhome, and we thought, what's this? What are we going to do? We tried calling all the roadside assistance places. Everybody said they can't help us with this type of vehicle. Monica had the idea to call the police, and I was a bit skeptical. I thought, what are they going to do? They're going to come down, they're going to look at it, they're not going to know what to do. Anyway, I went along with it. 2 officers came down from Binella Police Station, very friendly. They came with smiles on their faces. One of them had experience working on motors in the army. He was in the army for 8 years. He got right under the motorhome, identified the problem, fixed it up. It was wet down there. He got dirty, and you know what? These guys did it with a smile on their faces. And I said to myself, these guys are very, very different from the police that I've dealt with during the Corona situation. And we had a great chat. They were very helpful, very generous with their time. They had all the right tools. It seems like these guys were really multi-skilled, not just in policing, but all types of skills. He was a mechanical engineer, that's right, from the army. And it was extremely humanizing. And the 4 of us, we hung out and we spoke like human beings. And it was a tremendous experience, and very grateful to the officers from Binella Police Station. And they told me somewhat quietly, they said, us us cops out in the country, we're a bit different from the guys in the city. And so I just wanted to express my gratitude. You know, the way I see it, if I'm going to call out Victoria Police for when they do the right thing, then I must also recognize when they not just do the right thing, but when they go above and beyond. And it was so nice to be able to speak like just a group of Aussies standing around. And yeah, thank you very much to Binella Police. Anyway, moving forward. As you may or may not know, Reignite Democracy Australia is now a political party. We have surpassed our 500 members, and we're going to be submitting our application to the Australian Electoral Commission. That's right. The time has come, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that we can do a great job. Our momentum can't be stopped. We have members jumping on board routinely all the time. Our supporter base is getting behind this movement. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. So I'm really proud to be a part of this, of course, myself, Monica, and the other members of our executive committee, Miles, Esther, and Sherelle. So we're moving full steam ahead with this. If you would like to become a member, head on over to rdaparty.com.au. Okay, that's rdaparty.com.au. Membership is $40 per year. Now, in saying that, becoming a member does not obligate you to actually be involved actively. Okay, so some people messaged me, they said, listen, I don't have much time, I don't know if I can be a member. That doesn't matter. Okay, becoming a member gives you voting rights, but it does not obligate you to, say, volunteer your time or to do anything like that. Of course, if you would like to volunteer your time to do letterbox drops, etc., we'd be so happy to have you. Come election time, we want to have volunteers on every polling booth in as many places as we possibly can. And some people are asking me, will I be running as a candidate? I will have more to tell you about that really, really soon. And I'm excited for what the future holds. And the way I see it, ladies and gentlemen, is we have to work with the system we've got, okay? We know that democracy in Australia is not perfect, but as far as I'm concerned, our country needs some repairing, and it's up to we, the people, to get involved and to beat these politicians at their own game. So, yeah, really excited about what's happening, and I hope that you're excited as well. All right, back to the Reason Party bag of dirty tricks. Now, a couple of episodes ago, we spoke about a very sleazy, dirty trick used by the Reason Party, actually taking the names of other entities and redirecting those names, as in domain names, back to their website. Now, they did it to David Limbrick, and they did it to reignitedemocracy.com.au. Now, the presumption we have is that it is a cheap and underhanded way of redirecting traffic to their website, okay? Now, this is something that we're still looking into. As far as I'm concerned, it appears to me as alleged intellectual property theft, using someone else's name and brand in order for a personal gain, or a gain for the party, I should say. Now, it actually goes beyond what we spoke about last time. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. Just let me open up my browser. All right, so this was a story here. Published in Sunraysia Daily, Reason Party's domain name saga extends beyond 3 MPs. Okay, the story was republished here, reposted by Reignite Democracy Australia, and it was written by Matt Taylor. I'm going to read to you a little bit here, and you can tell me what you think about it. To me, it just seems cheap, underhanded, and basically this is what the Chinese Communist Party does. Taking the intellectual property from other corporations or individuals and using it for their own personal net gain. Check this out. I'm going to read to you. The Reason Party's morally corrupt creation of websites under rival politicians' domain names has run further than just 3 Victorian Nationals MPs. Sunraysia Daily can reveal the full extent of Reason's website blitz against its political rivals earlier this year. We broke the story on Friday that a staffer in Reason leader Fiona Paddon's office had bought the domain names of Nationals leader Pete Walsh and 2 of his colleagues, Emma Keeley and Danny O'Brien, in response to the Nats doing the same thing to its now former coalition partner, member for Mildura, Ali Cupper. All right. But the staffer didn't stop there. He also bought up the domain names of 3 other Victorian Upper House MPs of different stripes, as well as Reignite Democracy Australia. Stuart Grimley, Darren from the Darren Hinch Justice Party, Liberal Matthew Bark, and Liberal Democrat David Limbrick all had their domain names bought by the Reason staffer. Says here, quote, this is from Mr. Grimley, I found out about this at the end of last sitting week, just over a week ago, when I was having a few drinks with a couple of other crossbenchers. It's misleading, it's deceptive, morally corrupt, and it's just not on. Well, it's just not on, and it's exploitation, and it's trying to capitalize off the hard work other people have done for their own gain. It's basically, in my view, no different than walking into somebody's home and stealing someone's personal possessions and then using them for your own benefit. He said that he tried to call Fiona about it, but she hasn't gotten back to me. Surprise, surprise. Miss Patton confirmed she received the message from Mr. Grimley, but she was in New Zealand. So she was in New Zealand, she couldn't do anything about it. And I guess according to Fiona Patton, it's probably no big deal. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The dirty tricks of the Reason Party just seem to be adding up more and more. Of course, Fiona Patton voting to extend the state of emergency, voting to extend the disproportionate lockdown, the lockdown that has destroyed so many businesses, so many livelihoods, and has eroded our freedom. That's Fiona Patton. She's on the crossbench, and I dare say that she needs to be voted out of our parliament in due course. All right, next up here. Obviously, the federal budget came out, so we're just going to have a bit of a talk about one part of the federal budget, which is the defence spending. Okay, so as you can see here, the defence budget increases to $44.6 billion. We're going to have a little bit of a talk about this, and I'm going to speculate in relation to why there could be some certain increases in some certain areas. And of course, as you know at home, you are more than welcome to put your thoughts in the comment sections below. It's not just about what I think, it's also about what you think. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Okay, so this is coming from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Defence budget climbs to $44.6 billion. I'm going to read to you a little bit here, and then we'll put it into a little bit of context. Okay, so this is an increase on 2020 to 2021 of 6.1% in nominal terms and 4.1% in real terms. So real terms referring to adjustment for currency, the state of the economy, wages, cost of living, etc., those types of factors. So the 4.1% is the metric that you need to be paying the most attention to. It says here the defence budget is continuing its solid growth. In 2021 budget, the government was planning a huge $3 billion. That's a 27% increase in defence's acquisition budget from $12.2 billion to $14.3. Now, defence had only achieved roughly 5% increases in preceding years. Defence has come up with $1.6 billion short, but a big part of that can be accounted for by significant foreign exchange adjustments that reduce the acquisition budget. Okay, so of course, if the Australian dollar becomes stronger, it means that more equipment can be purchased for a lower dollar value, right? As the Australian dollar strengthens, so that's the point just there. Defence still exceeded its 2019 to 20 achievement by more than 1.4 billion, and that represents a 12.9% growth. Goes on to say, Defence hasn't yet provided us with the split between local and overseas spending for 20 to 21 and 21 to 22, but it will be interesting to see if Australian Defence Industries is finally managing to absorb more of the acquisition budget than its historical 1/3 share. In other words, we need to look at whether or not the government is bringing back local strategic manufacturing for defence purposes. Okay, and that could be in relation to anything from military hardware to uniforms. It says here, that will be crucial to boosting sovereign industry and military capability and mitigating supply chain risks. Okay, so mitigating supply chain risks, essentially, we need to be able to equip our military with what they need, and that should not be dependent on international supply chains. Okay, if our military needs equipment, we should not be dependent on China to be supplying that equipment. We should be completely self-reliant when it comes to strategic manufacturing. Of course, we see tensions with China rising. Okay, so why would it make sense to have our military manufacturing supply lines based in China when it's very well China that we will need to be defending ourselves from potentially in the very near future? It says here, as operations in the Middle East wind down, the cost of operations is the lowest it's been since before the 1999 East Timor intervention. Okay, where of course Indonesia invaded East Timor and we had to get involved. And so what did we do since then? We give hundreds of millions of dollars per year in foreign aid to Indonesia. Okay, they buy attack helicopters, we train their military, and now Indonesia and China are engaging in joint naval operations within our immediate geographical region. What could possibly go wrong? It goes on to say, going down from 751.4 million in 2020 to 2021 to a predicted 271.5 million in 21 to 22, taking into account that 136.2 million of that in 2020 to 21 was Operation COVID Assist. Okay, so our government spending a lot of money on COVID operations, as you've seen, of course, at times even using the uniform of our army members for things like border closures and so forth. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a look at the breakdown of spending for the defense budget here. So this is coming from federal member Andrew Hastie. This was an email that Andrew Hastie sent out to his email subscribers. It says here, the Morrison government has restored defense funding to 2% of GDP in 2020. Defense now has a 10-year funding model of $575 billion over the next decade, 2029 to 30. So the question we need to be asking ourselves here, is this going to be enough for the potential future threats faced by Australia? It says here that includes a $270 billion investment in the capability and potency of the ADF. We have a $183 billion naval ship building plan, the largest regeneration of the Navy since World War II, with more than 70 vessels being built in Australia. 37 of our 72 F-35A strike fighters have been delivered, with more than 10,000 hours already flown. We are developing a new missile defense capability and modernizing our land forces with 211 new combat reconnaissance vehicles, self-propelled howitzers, new helicopters, and more. The budget also builds investment into our intelligence security agencies, hardening our cyber resilience. And of course, we've seen multiple cyber attacks over the years, attacks on our on the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, and also our defense as well. And I think that it's probably fair to say that our defense data should not be stored in Chinese databases over in China, and that could be a question that should be addressed by the Prime Minister, I would say. All right, so that's a little bit of a breakdown there. Now, to put that in perspective, Andrew Hastie talks about restoring defense funding to 2% of GDP. So the question that we perhaps need to be asking ourselves is that enough? And should we look at reconfiguring the budget to bolster this 2% to a higher figure in order to address what could very much be an impending threat posed by the largest military population in the world, which of course is the Chinese military. Okay, so just to show you some figures right here. Okay, this is coming from Statista.com. Military expenditure as percentage of gross domestic product in high spending countries 2020. So Saudi Arabia coming in at place number 1 at 8.4%, Israel at number 2 with 5.6%, Russia, United States, India, South Korea, France, and then Australia coming in at 2.1 for 2020. Okay, now it's important to point out that the military expenditure you can interpret essentially as an indication of the threat perceived by that particular country. Okay, so we see Saudi Arabia there coming in at place number 1. Their biggest adversary is Iran, and Iran, of course, has various proxies that circumvent Saudi Arabia, Yemen being one of them, of course. So the 8.4% there, you could not necessarily, could interpret as an indication of the perceived threat considered by the Saudi Arabian government, and the 5.6% there at Israel could also be considered as what the government considers to be a perceived threat from around their borders. Russia, United States, India, and it goes down the list from there. Okay, so what do you think at home? Do you feel comfortable with 2% of our GDP going towards defense? Do you think it should be more? Do you think it should be less? Put your thoughts in the comments. Of course, China's media mouthpiece, as we mentioned on the MCJ report, threatens long-range missile strikes on Australian soil. Okay, so we've known for a long time that China is bolstering their military. We've seen the militarization of the South China Sea, all the naval patrols, the provocative activity, invading the exclusive economic zones of many other countries, whether it's Taiwan, Japan, Vietnam, Philippines, and now, of course, the Chinese Communist Party through their media outlet, which is nothing more than as it says here, a mouthpiece for the government, has threatened to actually strike Australia with long-range missiles. Okay, so I think Andrew Hastie actually spoke here about missile defense. Now, is he speaking in relation to China and their threats of long-range missiles? Why would Australia need missile defense, ladies and gentlemen? For what other reason, apart from China, would we need missile defense? That's a question I pose to you. It seems pretty clear that China is keen on this idea. Now, what we do know is that over in Vietnam, they're actually investigating a potential missile base near its border. That's right. So Vietnamese authorities have detected something they consider to be a missile base, a little bit too close for comfort, and they're making investigations to determine whether it is what they are concerned it might be. All right, so hypothetically speaking, if China was to develop a missile base in Indonesia or maybe Papua New Guinea, that would pose some serious security concerns for Australia, and of course would be best being prepared for that type of scenario, taking into account that sooner or later we're probably going to have to stand on our 2 feet. It's possible that the United States will not always be there to have our back in a military confrontation. So I think the best preparation is to be over-prepared. What do you guys think at home? I would much prefer to be over-prepared, to have security above and beyond, but to have the comfort of knowing that it's there. Just like they say, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. All right, so let's see, moving on here. So this is a concern, right? China proposing to build a $39 billion super city in Daru, which is right near the most northerly point of Queensland, perhaps with ambitions of converting that into some sort of military base or outpost, like what the CCP developed in Djibouti over in Africa, or the military bases in the South China Sea. Okay, so that right there would be in perfect striking distance of Australia, nice and easy for the Chinese Communist Party. We know that China and Indonesia are also holding joint naval patrols around Jakarta. Okay, so this is all in very close proximity to Australia. And we see ramping up of our defense budget, defense against missiles, okay? China threatening to strike Australia with missiles. It's really heating up a lot. And it will be interesting to see how this plays out and whether or not we get into a full-blown war with China. What do you think about that? Put your thoughts in the comments. So to put the threat in perspective, the super city that China is proposing to build is right there in Daru, and there is the most northerly point of Queensland. I believe it's about 200 kilometers. All right, so striking distance. There's Jakarta right over there, Indonesia. So we've got joint Chinese and Indonesian naval exercises, and keep in mind that we actually helped train the Indonesian Navy. Foreign aid, hundreds of millions of dollars per year. What does it get us in the end? China, of course, brings the Belt and Road Initiative to Indonesia, has deep commercial interest in Indonesia's copper and nickel, and wants to turn Indonesia into an electric vehicle manufacturing hub. And of course, we see the COVID-19 vaccine diplomacy relations between Indonesia and China, both Indonesia and China being very authoritarian countries, and now the military cooperation. So I dare say it's a threat that we need to be taking very seriously, and we seem to see elements of that addressed in the military budget. I just question if it's enough, or if we really need to look at maybe making adjustments in the budget down the line in order to direct additional funds into the military. Maybe there's some parts of the budget you read through and you think, well, hey, maybe we shouldn't be spending so much money on A, B, and C. If you do, why don't you go ahead and put that in the comments? Alrighty. All right, so that wraps it up for this part of the show, the defense budget. So again, mcjreport.com, go to the website, put your email address in, and I'll send you all the sources, all the links that I use in the show, and you can subscribe. And hey, if I get kicked off Facebook, that means we can always stay in touch. All right, let's keep this moving, shall we? Let's keep it moving. All right, you can say no. So as you know, this is a permanent fixture here on the MCJ Report. We speak about Corona news and updates and some of the latest developments. And unfortunately, it's just starting to become like a dream, a bad dream that keeps on going and seems to never stop. But we need to keep monitoring it. We need to stay sharp and we need to be ready for what's coming. So let's have a look. What do we have here today? Okay, so this is coming from Canada. Another brave freedom-fighting pastor speaks out, okay? And we're seeing more of them come out. We covered on the MCJ Report the Polish-born Canadian pastor who kicked out the authorized officers and police from his church when they tried to shut him down. They later intercepted him on the highway and arrested him. He refused to comply and forced them to carry him off. I would describe the man as a hero and a defender of rights to all people all around the world. His actions inspire, and we look at these people and we're very grateful for them in their acts of bravery and acts of defiance against what many people would argue is a government that has overstepped their boundaries and invaded our personal liberties, our lives. Okay, so Calgary pastor arrested after breaking pandemic gathering rules for months. So there he is right there. Tim Stevens, that's his name, has been arrested after months of encouraging church congregants to break public health rules. Was he encouraging them to break rules, or was he encouraging them to simply live in accordance with what is their God-given rights and freedoms? You see the language used by this article? I don't interpret it as breaking rules. I interpret it as people living in accordance with their freedoms and living in accordance with their own values. What do you think? Put that in the comments. Police said Stevens was arrested for organising a church service on Sunday at the Fairview Baptist Church in southeast Calgary in violation of a Court of Queen's bench order that requires organisers of events to comply. We hear that word a lot, don't we? Comply. Comply with this, comply with that, sign in here, scan this, with public health restrictions. The pastor acknowledged the injunction but chose to move forward with today's service, ignoring requests for social distancing, mask wearing, and reduced capacity limits for attendees. Okay, so in other words, he refused to impose the non-evidence-based, corrupt and abusive policies of his government. He said, no, I'm not going to impose this. People are free to do what they want. And that was considered a crime. Really sad stuff. There's some footage here. This goes for just, 2 minutes. This is from the scene of the arrest. I'm going to play it for you.
Fairview Baptist Church pastor Tim Stevens was arrested Sunday afternoon, accused of organizing a church service that did not comply with public health orders, including masking, physical distancing, and attendance limits. Police arrested Stevens just after 3 p.m. following the 11 a.m. service. A crowd, including his wife and children, gathered around and watched.
There are tears, there's frustrations, there's an upset. Ultimately, what has motivated that cause is obedience to Christ. And so we obey him first before others that we respect.
While the churchgoers are feeling a loss, many in the neighborhood are relieved.
I think it's a long time coming. This community has been worried. We're all in a pandemic together. We're trying everything we can to end it. And this congregation under this pastor has been negligent, in my mind.
It's very satisfying to arrest the leaders of these congregations, but there will be other people who step up. I understand and all we can do as individuals is to do the right thing and to do right by our neighbors and to obey the restrictions.
According to Calgary Police last weekend, Stevens was proactively served a copy of the Court of Queen's bench order obtained by Alberta Health Services. He acknowledged the injunction, police say, but chose to move forward with service, ignoring social distancing, masking, and capacity limits. Places of worship in high-case areas like Calgary are only allowed 15 in-person attendees. AHS says they've tried to work with the church and Stevens to address the ongoing public health concerns, and it's only when there's continued non-compliance that enforcement action is taken. An elder from Fairview Baptist tells Global News they will continue service even after the arrest. Jackie Wilson, Global News.
All right, so there you hear it, the attendees of the church vowing to continue their services and continuing to engage in what they consider to be their God-given rights of congregation. Moving forward here. Okay, New South Wales news. 9 million vaccines away from considering opening borders, says the Premier. Okay, so she's a professional apparently. She understands infection and infectious disease control. So listen to her, Gladys Berejiklian. She knows better than anyone. She said that we need to administer another 9 million COVID-19 vaccine doses to consider reopening international borders. All right, and there she is there, just having a big old laugh about it. It's all a big joke for Gladys Berejiklian. You know, I ventured over into New South Wales over the weekend, Monica and I, we did, and we went to a McDonald's, and you know what? We could not actually even order a cheeseburger. That's right. That was my experience in New South Wales. Went to order. They not only ask people to sign in, they ask for proof of whether or not you've signed in. Okay, so obviously we refused to do that, and we were not just refused entry, we were ordered to leave. That's right. So can't even order a cheeseburger in New South Wales, it seems, unless you sign in and then get your phone and show proof to an employee that you signed in. So New South Wales really cracking down, and we see all around Australia the new implementation of measures to ensure that businesses are complying. We've heard about undercover authorized officers checking whether or not businesses are using QR codes, and if they're not, they'll receive a massive fine. Just another assault on businesses in a long line of assault on businesses. Okay, this is a true example of the big guy picking on the little guy. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the little guy to rise up. That's why we started a political party. That's why we're getting involved in this process, because we cannot allow the future of our country to be dictated by politicians who are willing to trade away our freedoms in exchange for preserving their own careers. We cannot allow that to happen. Okay, we cannot do it to ourselves. Future generations. We can't allow future generations to be governed by people like this. We can't allow it to happen. Okay, if you want to get involved in this fight, Reignite Democracy, go to rdaparty.com.au and you can become a member, register your interest, because only if we do this together can we make an impact. All right, moving forward here. Some news from Singapore, just quickly. Singapore looks to tear up its vaccine playbook. All right, so Singapore, they don't have enough vaccines, so now they're saying, oh, well, you only need one vaccine, you don't need two. So they just changed the goalposts to suit themselves all over the world. Singapore had a few cases, they're locking everyone down again. And Singapore, they really don't have any leniency. So when there's a lockdown, there's a lockdown. They enforce the law very, very strongly in Singapore. So we see that many people being locked down in Singapore again. I wonder how the citizens feel about it. Singapore is a very compliant society. Who here has been to Singapore? I've been there a couple of times, and I can tell you that it's a nice society, very polite people. There's no graffiti. Crime is very low. In fact, the homicide rate is much lower than even what we have in Australia. But what I can also tell you is that the people are very, very compliant. Okay? You won't see people really challenging the government in a strong, outspoken way out of fear of punishment from the government. So all of the societal order, the societal orderly nature of Singaporean society comes at a cost of personal liberty and freedom. Does that make sense? So what would you prefer? Would you prefer controlled safety or would you prefer a little bit of dangerous freedom? I know what I would prefer. What about you? Moving on to the United States, last week on the MCJ Report, we played a 7-minute back and forth where the Senator Rand Paul got stuck into Anthony Fauci regarding US government funding that via a non-government entity made its way to the Wuhan lab and has done so for many years, and whether it was used for gain of function research, which is in relation to research into viruses and infections that can transmit beyond different species, okay, that can cross over from one species to another. Anthony Fauci vehemently denied that US funding had gone into this particular type of research. But of course, we really have no way of knowing. Once funding enters China into the Wuhan lab of virology or anywhere else, it could be used for anything. We can't rely on a regime that perpetually lies about everything to all of a sudden tell us the truth regarding something so obscure as gain of function research. All right, so there's a little bit of an interview here with Rand Paul. He's accused Dr. Anthony Fauci of being a liar, okay? And this goes for 2 minutes and 37 seconds. I'm going to play this clip for you now.
Paul with Anthony Fauci yesterday. Senator Paul is with me now. And sir, good morning to you. I'm going to cut through a lot of the stuff. I know you went back and forth with him yesterday. What is your current theory today as to how COVID started?
I would say we don't know for certain, but I would say what Dr. Fauci said yesterday was verifiably false. He said no NIH money went to the Wuhan Institute for gain of function. Well, the main doctor there, the one they call the bat scientist or the bat woman, is a woman named Dr. Shi Zhengali. She wrote a paper that MIT scientists have looked at that they said was gain of function, meaning juicing up these viruses to make them very potent and infect humans. She wrote this paper, and in the paper acknowledged that her funding came from Dr. Fauci's group, the NIAID, which is part of NIH. So he's verifiably telling you something that is not true. Now, he may be quibbling and saying they weren't doing gain of function or they weren't supposed to, but we've looked at the grant application. In the grant application, we have a cellular biologist from Rutgers who says the grant application is for gain of function, juicing up these viruses. So Dr. Fauci came to Congress yesterday and lied. We can't prove the virus came from the lab. I'm not saying it did. I'm saying there is very much suspicious evidence that it might have.
Senator, what does he have to get? He was under oath, wasn't he, in that hearing?
I don't think he had to take an oath, but what he told the American public was verifiably false.
What does he have to gain, if you're right? I mean, your accusation is that he's not telling the truth. What does he have to win from that?
I think he's worried about culpability. So the person they put in charge of the investigation of whether or not the Wuhan Virology Institute had anything to do with COVID-19, the person they put in charge of the investigation was the guy who gave the money to Wuhan Institute. So they're circling the wagons, and they are deathly afraid that some evidence will come out that this virus escaped the lab. The doctor who runs the Wuhan lab said that she couldn't sleep at night afterwards until she said, I figured out that it didn't come from our lab. She was worried to death it did come from her lab, but now do we take her word for it? She would probably be executed in China if she was responsible for this. She's probably, if it were there, destroyed the evidence. So we'll never know if it came from there. But my point is this. Should the U.S. government be funding these labs in China? China's a rich country. Why are we sending millions of our dollars to a secretive lab where we can't trust what they're doing?
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Put your thoughts in the comments below. The back and forth we saw on 2 MCJ reports ago. You can go back and check the replay out. Dr. Anthony Fauci vehemently denying that U.S. government funding made it into the Wuhan Institute of Virology for gain of function research, and Rand Paul accusing Dr. Fauci of being a bold-faced liar. Who's telling the truth and who's lying? I think I know who I trust. Anyway, put that in the comments below. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Telegram is the place to be. If you would like to keep up to date with what I'm doing, Reignite Democracy is in RDA Party, which of course I'm a big part of. You can go and follow me, Morgan C. Jonas, on Telegram. I post articles on Telegram, so the articles that we talk about on the show, I post it all there. I stopped posting articles on Facebook, so Facebook I really just use for doing these videos and my live show now. Telegram is the place to be, and Telegram is going to be a very important tool in our fight for our cause. I've also started a podcast, so check this out. It's going to go everywhere, so all your favorite podcast players, Apple and Google, Spotify, all those that will be available, MCJ Report. But for now, it's at Spreaker.com, so you can, if you'd like to, just listen to the audio and not see me, or you might like to just listen while you're driving or while you're at home doing something. Spreaker.com/show/MCJ-report. I'll put the link in the chat because that's a bit of a mouthful. So I'm just going to put that in the chat now. And that way, if you're on the run, you can catch the MCJ Report. And I'm going to be increasing the bandwidth for the podcast. And we want to make MCJ Report as accessible as possible. Hopefully, we don't get taken down from the major platforms. We need to be getting this message out there. So I've put that in the comment section below. And you can go ahead and listen to it. All right, so mcjreport.com/support. So MCJ Report, this is my job. This is what I do for a living now. And the show survives based on your financial support and yours alone. I don't have any corporate sponsors or any money from big companies or corporations coming in. It's all small contributions from you, the viewers, you, the MCJ supporters. So if you would like to support the show, mcjreport.com/support, and then I'll add you to the members only group. We have some catch-ups, we send information back and forth, and I'm going to start a members only broadcast whereby we can have a bit more one-on-one interactions, and you can bring your questions to the table and I can answer in a more sort of measured way over a longer duration rather than the way we sort of do it on the live MCJ Report. So that's mcjreport.com/support. In saying that, of course, if you're going through a difficult financial time, I would prefer that you held off and maybe come back to it another day. Let's see. One second. At rdaparty.com.au. That's right, we are a political party now. I feel that we've tried so many different angles since the inception of this corona situation. Activism, campaigning, email campaigns, trying to align with other smaller parties, but nothing has really quite worked. And we figured, you know what, we're just going to start our own political party and we're going to do what we can to beat these politicians at their own game. So if you want to join us, that's rdaparty.com.au, or maybe you're part of another smaller party. If you are, I'd like to hear from you, because come election time, we're going to need to work together, talk about preferences. You know, if our primary votes, if it's not enough, we'd prefer that they go to a good party so the votes aren't wasted. Of course, it's all about being strategic and it's all about working together. You see, since starting the party, some smaller party members have interpreted this as somewhat of a threat. But actually, competition is good. It's good to have people coming from a similar persuasion competing against each other in order to produce the best result for the voter. It's the same principle in the business world. That's why we have free market. That's why we have competition. This is the idea of democracy. It's supposed to be a marketplace of ideas. And worst case scenario, we have the preference system. I'll give you an example. Say there's a Reignite Democracy candidate that has a well-fought campaign but just misses out. Now, let's just say in that electorate, there's also a candidate from IMOP, which is a party I really like, the Informed Medical Options Party. And our primary vote ends up going to the IMOP guy. The IMOP guy gets in. Well, I can go home at the end of the day and feel happy and feeling confident that our parliament became a better place. Ultimately, I want the Reignite Democracy candidate to get in. But if it happened to be the other person, I'm just using IMOP as an example, guess what? I'm having a drink at the end of the day and I'm saying, good. This is good. This is a good result. So, yeah, for anyone from minor parties who have been feeling maybe that this is some sort of competition dogfight, well, it's a competition of ideas, but ultimately the preference system allows for strategic partnerships to take place. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Anyway, that's just about it for the show. So, I might just open up the floor, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions, and let's just get that done here. And by the way, if there's trolls in the comments, I actually can't block them while I'm doing the stream. So I know that there are people that come into the comments and they make really immature remarks, and they're there to antagonize, and they're there because they want attention, because nobody gives them attention. My advice to you is click on that person's name, click on the 3 little dots, or hold your finger down and block them. Okay, just get rid of them, because your time and energy is better spent elsewhere, not on them. They only seek to take your energy because they're lacking attention, and the only way they can get attention is through these immature, childish ways that, quite frankly, is below all of us. Okay. Ash says, is there legislation that protects us from signing in with a QR code? Okay, we're seeking legal advice right now, Ash, regarding the Privacy Act. Okay, so I'm not going to comment too much on that right now, but we are looking into it, and when I know more, I'll be happy to talk about it. Okay, and there's Judy there. Judy, how are you? It's great to see you there. Judy, a great supporter. I really like seeing you. Terry says, will I be wearing a tie tomorrow? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Daniel says, is there an RDA chapter in ACT? There are RDA supporters in ACT, Daniel. So if you'd like to be connected with them, let me know. Let me know by sending me a private message, and we can facilitate something. There's Louise there. Let's see. There's Andrea. That's right, Andrea. So the best thing we can do is stay focused on our mission, stay focused on bigger and better goals. Okay, this the low level squabbling it's just a waste of our time. We have bigger fish to fry, as they say. And there's Gina there, my friend, who's a great supporter of the show. Gina, thank you for being here. It's great to see you. Hopefully we can catch up soon and have a coffee or something. John says, iron sharpens iron. That's right, it does. Christina says, well done on the new party. Thank you, and thank you for being a part of it. Just reading down the comments here. Cameron says, join forces with A1. Well, I'll tell you what, based on different electorates, it's going to make sense to form strategic partnerships with various smaller parties. Okay, so all options are on the table right now. Okay, it's all about working out a system whereby the strongest out of the smaller parties in various electorates end up with the votes. Does that make sense? Okay, there's Terry there. And if there's any more questions, I hope everyone had fun at the Freedom Rally. I had a great time meeting everyone in Sydney. I met so many great people. It was very, very humbling. Very humbling. I love meeting freedom-loving people. You know, there's something that makes us all the same, isn't there? You know, when an individual has a mindset that the government should be smaller, should be less controlling, and should be more so out of our lives, as opposed to being involved in every single part of our lives, there's an instant connection that you have with a person like that. It's a particular view of the world. It's a view in favor of personal liberty and freedom, and it's standing up for the little guy, which is us. Thank you, Teresa. Teresa, we appreciate you. And you know, Teresa, I see different chats and different pages, and I see you in there batting for us all the time. So I notice what you're doing as well. John says small parties can't afford to lose their individuality. Okay, that's a fair statement. Anthony says we can run our own lives, and there's my friend Anthony right there, who made some great remarks in various of his speeches, one of them being, we don't need the government making decisions for us. And that was something that stuck with me. And that came from a slightly different perspective than how I had looked at the situation before, which is true. We don't need the government to make decisions for us regarding what medication we take, our hygiene, our health. We're not silly, we're not children. We can make those choices for us and for our families. We don't need the government to make those choices for us. The government is now involved in every part of our lives. And once they get that control, it doesn't go away. They seek to expand that control, which is why us regular people, non-political people, are forced to get involved in this process. Okay? When Labor and Liberal conduct their pre-selection, they're not selecting Australia's best and brightest and most well-intended. They're not selecting you, they're not selecting me. So what other choice do we have? We love this country and we need to do whatever it takes. Beryl says your Facebook was hacked. I'm sorry to hear that. That really sucks. That's super annoying. Thank you, Terry. We got Viv from Yay. How you going? Good to see you. Good to see you. Country Victoria. Amazing people. I am in Melbourne. Yeah, I am in Melbourne. That's a green screen of here's a challenge. The background is Melbourne. Who knows where in Melbourne the background is? It's a green screen. I am in Melbourne. I'm not at that location. It's I can turn off the location. See the greatness of technology, right? Look at this. We can go to a different one there, a different skyline, but I've stuck with this one. I tend to like this one the most. Craig Kelly did a great job. I had the pleasure of meeting Craig Kelly. I think he's a great guy, very friendly, and I would say that his heart is in the right place, and we're lucky to have him in our parliament, but we need more like him. Marlene says Perth. Sophie says looking over Albert Park. No, not quite. Margaret says, will I be showing the full Sydney Freedom Rally? No, I won't. I'm not sure who took the footage or who has it. Lorimer Street. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know the name of the street. I know the location. Port Melbourne, South Bank. Yeah, South Bank. That's right. So, South Bank, I'm trying to describe it here. Near the freeway exit, the opposite side of DFO in Melbourne. You guys know? Is that Lorimer Street? I think it might be. But that's where it is. So looking towards southeast, the direction would be southeast. Green screen and chroma key. Terry, you know your lingo. You know what's going on. Wasim used to live there. Did you enjoy living there? I always wanted to live around that area there. I quite like it. Off Wurundjeri Way. Yeah, that's right. Zach had a live stream. Great. Anna says we need Craig Kelly. We need Craig Kelly replicated. Is that fair enough? South Wharf. Yeah, around there. It's not far from DFO. That's right. Awesome stuff. So, does anyone have any more questions? I'm definitely keen to answer. If you want to sign up, mcjreport.com, email address. After every show, I cut it up. I send all the links, all the information, so you can go home and read it for yourself. You can cross-reference. My goal on the MCJ Report is I never want to say anything that you can't go and independently verify yourself. That's really important to me. So no pie-in-the-sky narratives on the MCJ Report. We just like to stick to the facts, work with the information that we've got, and just have a measured, fact-based approach. Is that fair enough? Sophie says, which building is on my left? I don't know. Where is it? Nat says, how many people do I think attended Sydney? I'd say about 1,500. Nat, were you in Melbourne? Andrew says, am I assisting Peter Little? No, I'm not. I'm not working with Peter, and I hope that he's okay. Louise said that a child died in Tamworth. that's very, very much a tragedy, and we send our prayers and best wishes. Machiko, great to see you here. It's so nice to see you. You'll be signing up in a few days. Thank you for being here, and I hope to speak to you soon. We have a lot to talk about. We haven't spoken for a while, so we have lots to talk about. I always see you on the broadcast, and I notice you, so thanks for being here. Okay, great. Okay, so I think that's about it now. Believe it or not, there's I think I've finished. You know, usually I have a lot to say, but then we get to the end of the show, I'm like, oh, I don't think I have much more to say. But you know what? There is so much more. We can go into the budget more. I really wanted to cover the defense spending because I think it's quite telling in relation to looking at China's military footsteps, their spending, their threats, the potential for CCP-controlled cities in close proximity to Queensland. Of course, we look at the belligerents in the Senkaku Islands in Japan, around that area, and now the belligerents towards us. We don't want to be sitting ducks. We don't want to have to rely on the United States, okay? We want to work with the United States. We hope that they remain a strong military because, of course, it's a military alliance that has served us well. But we also want to be able to stand on our own 2 feet if push comes to shove. Is that fair enough? Okay. Anyway, I'm just talking now. So, guys, lots of love. Thank you for watching the show. And what can I say? Keep fighting. You're doing an awesome job, and I'm excited. See you later.